So, hi everybody, I'm Jess, as Kyle said, and I'm really grateful to be part of the Sea Point team here. As Kyle said, I kind of have my feet in two worlds. It's next gen with children and then biblical justice, so two very different things that I'm kind of balancing between, but I'm actually equally passionate about both. And as Kyle was saying, over the past 8 months, we've been deeply investing in exploring what biblical justice looks like in the context of our city and how mercy and justice intersects, and we've had numerous conversations with stakeholders and organizations, and we've built our own projects and we've strategized about new projects, and we're really excited as we move on to this new year. And as we come to the end of this biblical justice series this evening, I honestly feel this deep sense of excitement because over the past few months, while we've been understanding this and exploring ways we can serve others, we're really excited to also encourage each of you guys to see how justice can work out in your own lives. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. I promise I'm not going to drop you in blind into a series. I will give you a little bit of context so you know where you're going. And what's been really beautiful for me is throughout this journey, I've met incredible people that just have massive hearts for justice. And it's off the back of that we've been able to do these interviews. So I would like to have Callie and Bastiaan come up, but I'm going to let them come up one at a time so one doesn't stand awkwardly. So Callie, can you come and stand up first? Let's give a warm welcome for Callie. Hello, Callie. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Callie was also actually one of the very first meetings that I had when I was given this biblical justice title, and I was like, what is this? What is this about? And she was just so gracious and so kind to sit with me during her work hours to explain where the church has been and what the view of it is. And she's also on the board of New Hope SA, which is this really awesome organization that tries to find holistic solutions for homelessness. And she is someone that biblical justice lives within her veins. It's just who she is and it's what she does. And when we were chatting about this interview, she gave an interesting insight, and she says sometimes the idea of doing good without harm can almost paralyze you, and then you end up doing nothing. And she's made her own mistakes through the interactions that she's had. But God has shown you kindness despite yourself. And I'd love to hear a few examples of when that was.
Well, thank you, Jess. So Romans 8 promises us that all things will be worked together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And I've seen that he will even use our mistakes in doing this. And when this series started, I just was reminded of a couple of situations where God had used me in a very small way to help people in need. And in all of those circumstances, he had done the most amazing things for me personally. And I was just amazed at how, just how he also kind of confirmed that he was at work in those situations. And there's a scripture from Matthew. Jesus says, even if you give just a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who's a disciple, you will by no means lose your reward. And I was like, but I've had the benefits this side of eternity already. But there's definitely been times where I've made mistakes. I think the worst, in a way, it wasn't even a cup of cold water. It was actually some money, and it wasn't an insignificant amount. And just after I'd given it to this person, they told me that they were about to be evicted. I was driving home, and I actually saw them on the street with somebody, and I knew immediately in my spirit that money had gone to purchase substances and not for rent. And although it was devastating, I feel like I didn't feel ashamed or like condemnation. I just felt like God had shown me the truth of the situation, and now I could pray for the people. And in true God fashion, very soon after that, someone approached me with the exact same story, and I knew exactly what to say and how to handle it. And the person immediately walked away when they realized that I could, poke a hole in the story. But But yeah, I feel like in reflecting on these moments, like surely the biggest mistakes is when we don't act, when there was an opportunity to be generous and we haven't. And there was a situation like that recently where I hadn't done anything, but God very clearly called me back. And I was just walking in Regent Road. It was August. It was probably the last really, really bad weather day of the year. And a lot of people were coming up to me and asking me for money and food, and I hadn't helped anybody, but it was kind of sitting on my heart that there were a lot of people that were suffering. And anyway, I got home, got into my nice warm flat, sat down on the couch, had this moment of like, warmth. And then God said, go back. And that's all he said, but he said it very, very clearly. It was just kind of playing over my mind. So I went to the kitchen because I thought I can't just go back empty-handed. And I started taking bread out of the freezer. And then he either said the number 2 or the number 4, but I took out 4 slices and made 2 sandwiches. And I was like, okay, Lord, now you've got to show me who this is, because you've clearly got like 2 very specific people in mind for this. So I went back down there, you know, typical me, like worry about, am I going to hear God now? And and then there was somebody that I felt very clearly led to. And as I walked up to him, he walked up to the robot and pressed the button as if he was like calling the green man for me. And he didn't ask me for anything, he didn't speak to me. So I spoke to him, of course, asked him his name, and spoke to him for a little bit, and then I said to him, do you need something to eat? And he said yes, so then I gave the sandwich. But his name, very unusual name, I've never met anybody with that name, but it was so significant. It had come up that week before a very challenging situation at work. It's actually kind of a bit ongoing. And it really it was a promise from God of peace. So I'm just grateful for what you just shared, Albury, around having peace and God's protection. And the name actually came up in a sermon the next day. Paul was preaching, just another confirmation. And like many times over, God has just used that to remind me of He's with me in the situation. So I feel God confirms in various ways when you're on the right track, whether it's something specific like that or just a joy that you get, when you are doing His will.
Beautiful. Thank you, Callie. Thank you so much. And we had a bit of a joke on the phone where Callie was like, I gave the first sandwich to the right person, but I'm not sure about the second sandwich. So I'm glad that God directed me in the first one. So sometimes we don't always know. Bastiaan is also a member of our Common Ground Sea Point family. He is an AMer with me. And he has been hard at work at a project looking at the homelessness situation within Sea Point. And the most interesting thing about this project was actually sparked by our In Sea Point as it is in heaven Insights evening. So Bastiaan, I would really love to understand what it was about that specific event that made you feel like I need to get stuck in and use my skills for the homelessness in Sea Point, and where are you guys now?
Thank you, Jess. Before I came to Sea Point, I lived in Noordhoek, and we don't have a problem there with homeless people. So when I came to Sea Point last year, it really hit me hard. And I was also praying at the same time, Lord, give me something to get stuck into this church. And then in April, Jessica had her talk, and that inspired me greatly. And I met with NGOs since then, with other churches, and also with the city of Cape Town, and even with the government, and also with Callie, of course, as far as Muizenberg.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is complicated. What can our church, our medium-sized church, possibly do? So we, together with Greg, who's probably not here tonight, he was my mentor. He's one of the elders, can I say that, of this church. And we also looked at the literature. I'm a bit of an academic sometimes. And we looked at everything from Maslow to Tim Keller, everything in between. And we had some rough ideas, but then a moment of clarity, And I said, what did Jesus do? And no, Jesus typically, when he walked on the road with his disciples, he would ask a person, what can I do for you? Either the person maybe was blind, or he couldn't walk, or needs somebody to pick him up and put him in the pool. And then Jesus fixed his problem, his one problem, and then he continued walking. And Jesus didn't suffer from burnout. He had time to pray because of his rather pragmatic approach, if I can say that. And we saw a solution in that. That's something that we can possibly do at our church. So we went ahead, interviewed 20 people on the street of Sea Point, and we asked them with questionnaire, we asked them their story, but we also asked them, what is the one thing that we can possibly do for you? And we were very surprised. About 15 out of 20 had one specific thing. Like somebody lost their ID book, somebody needs a birth certificate or a bus fare, somebody wants to be reconciled with his family in the Eastern Cape, and a phone call needs to be made. And wow, and that's something we can possibly do, as sort of look for a next step for a person. And yeah, I'm very excited about it, and we'll see where it takes us. It's just a proposal at this point to start maybe like a next step ministry. What can we do maybe next year? Can we do something with this? And even we continue dreaming about this, of course. Maybe we can be an example for other churches, or even start a foundation to assist different churches. Okay, so we've documented all this in like a draft proposal or like a white paper. We'd love you to have a look at that, some of you. Give me your name. I've got a sign-up sheet there. You'll see me at the coffee bar later. And exciting stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Amazing.